I'm Anthony Bonaldi. We're gonna host this, and then I'm here with my dad, Adam. Dad, do you want to kind of talk about maybe your background first, and then I can go after?
Sure. Yeah. So we've decided to do this as maybe a kind of a way to help people. We've been through a lot in our hockey journey. Personally, I've owned a junior hockey team, been a advisor for 8 others, and just throughout the process of recruiting and trying to get both you and your brother, moved up through the ranks, we've learned a lot. I think some good and some bad, and we just decided to kind of get it out there and help some of the people going through the same journey.
Yeah. So for me, um, obviously you're from Buffalo, more hockey, and then growing up in Vegas, um, and now playing college hockey, I kind of gone through a lot of different levels and a lot of different places and teams, and kind of had to figure it out, and that was tough. Um, I mean, a lot of parents or a lot of families don't have the direction I had with you and kind of what we were able to bring. So I think that's kind of why we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, everywhere we go, people ask us how, where, when, what do we do next? I know that you train a lot of young goaltenders, which is probably the hardest quest of all of this. If playing goalie is one thing, but trying to move up and understand all these different levels is probably one of the most challenging things any kid or parent could go through. So I think that's kind of the foundation of why we're doing this. And, we'll talk through some of the challenges and maybe some of the obstacles that'll sound familiar to people.
Yeah. So I guess kind of where we wanted to start was how hockey, you growing up playing a lot of different sports and then seeing how different hockey was, kind of how many levels there are, what that does for kids, both good and bad, I guess, from AAA to countless junior leagues and college and ACHA and NCAA and just completely different than any other sport.
Yeah, and it's interesting as I got older and you guys fell in love with hockey, the thing that I was worried about, or maybe some of the concerns that I had as a kind of athlete growing up in upstate New York, was all my friends that played hockey were just never around, number one. Um, they were up at 4:30 in the morning to get ice. Their parents had to have, at the time, a lot more money than I did between ice and equipment and commitment. So, it took a lot um, from them, I think, as far as like freedom and that stuff. But I think it's just the balance of what it gives back. I mean, it's probably the best sport in the world to play, but the sacrifices, both, financially and your time, it gets pretty crazy. And so, I chose to probably involve myself in multiple sports, some out of my own decision and some just family expenses. And, one of the things that's super confusing is you really just don't know, I think, where you're going to land. Let's say, for example, the comparison between where I grew up in Buffalo, where hockey was Junior Sabres, Buffalo Regals, Wheatfield Blades. I mean, but they were all AAA programs, right? And then you go to, let's say, a growing community with Vegas, let's say 10, 12 years ago, was really just starting. There was no pro team. And then there was like house league, there was A, double A. We didn't even really know what was possible here. And so what happens is you start to figure out where you are as an athlete and how much you love the sport, and then kind of settle in. So it gets a little weird, I think, for a kid and a parent to try to maneuver through that landscape. I don't know how you felt about it, but you grew up with a hockey love, but in a very small, quote unquote, hockey town before the Knights were here.
Yeah, I mean, what do we have? We had the Wranglers, which at my age then, I didn't even really know what it was. I thought like, okay, this is pro hockey. We go to these games and this is fun. I didn't really understand. Um,
Which
but
was at
that,
the time ECHL, right?
yeah, yeah, yep. Um, they're gone now, obviously, but um, the Las Vegas Wranglers East Coast team when I was there was fun. Like, but I didn't really understand what it was. I played. I mean, what did I start? Pee Wee B, and uh, kind of just went from there. And then hockey. until I kind of went to Buffalo, um, just out of like, okay, there's hockey camps, see grandma, um, do some goalie camps. I didn't really even understand what other levels were. I was kind of just playing and watching Miller and goalies that I liked, but I didn't really understand the landscape at all until went to corn camp, and that helped for sure. Seeing other goalies, seeing better goalies or goalies outside of Vegas, where at the time there was not very many of us. Um, but I think having that outlet of going somewhere else or like that opportunity was huge, especially like it being Buffalo. But a lot of kids don't even have that, I guess, luck that they can use.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the problem is that the exposure, you know, you may have a young athlete, let's say, who's just gifted, right? He's got speed and reflexes and balance and but maybe there's just no exposure to what's out there, right? So one of the recommendations I would say is even if you can't afford a lot of travel, there's so much video available now, there's so much access to the highest level that I think it's probably good for people to educate themselves and not stay so singular focused on, okay, my son is better than everybody on his team, for example.
Mm,
You know, before you start spending too much money or believing something maybe that's not true, you almost do have to expose both you and your children to kind of like what is out there to see if they have what it takes because you can be very good, but there's a certain commitment level that the best kids have. And that's kind of what I went back to as I was growing up because it was like they were practicing 5 days a week, you
mhm.
know, and we would do our, you know, our football practices or baseball or soccer or whatever it was. And there was just room for so much more.
Yeah.
And I think that now it's like you have kids, you know, and the guys on Chicklets talk about it all the time. When they were growing up, you could take the off season off. And now there's everything from diet to workouts to how often you're on the ice and now rinks are open all summer and
Yeah.
you know there's a lot going on and so I think that trying to maneuver through that um, you know is one of the things that kind of made us talk about maybe we could provide a roadmap or
Mhm.
at least a better understanding from all of this information that we've gathered over the last 12 years to help people kind of at all levels, because if you're a house league player, you want to play travel hockey. If you're a travel hockey player, you're at let's say a double A level, you know you're going to start dreaming of playing triple A for the Little Caesars and the CompuWares. And but what does that take, and what does that look like? And someone to help evaluate your current situation, plus maybe help you get to the next level. And that's kind of the stuff that we've been talking about. I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me on the West Coast, it was always Junior Kings. Like I played Storm, Las Vegas Storm Double A, and thought that was okay. I'll play Double A. I'll make D1, and then play in the NHL when you're a kid, right? And then you quickly realize as you move up that that's not not how it works. Um, and even playing triple A, it's not necessarily I play triple A now I'm going to go to the next. It's spots, it's where I'm going to play. Like going to Kings tryouts, Dustin
Yep.
Wolf, shout out,
Running into Dustin Wolf.
shout out Wolfie. Even at that age, how old was I? 14.
Yep.
We were probably 14. It
Mhm.
was like okay, you're a good goalie, but we have Dustin Wolf, who anybody watching now should probably know Dustin Wolf. Just had a great game last night, 3-1 win over Winnipeg. But it's not. It was just closest team, Junior Kings, cool jerseys in my mind when I was a kid, and that's where I wanted to go. But maybe I go to a lesser team or somewhere different if I knew about it or I knew a coach or I had somebody to talk to. Say, hey, this is a Triple A team.
This
They're
is where
losing a
you fit.
goalie.
Right. This
Yeah,
is where
there's
you fit.
things that we didn't even know to look out for until then.
Well, and by default, we kind of that's how you end up at because even within every level, there are different levels of double A teams, right? There are
Yeah.
different levels of triple A teams. For example, you ended up as a Bobcat.
Hmm.
which at the time was a great West Coast AAA program, but and you became the starter there, but it was tough to earn a position over someone like Dustin, who's playing at the highest level. And that's a really good example of you were one of the best goalies in your area. There's district camp, right? And you're going to
Hmm.
go and go compete. And then all of a sudden you run into this kid, Dustin Wolf, who's the starting goalie on the highest AAA team there and ends up in the NHL, right? And so, and
Well,
you who
yeah.
have a better career than most kids playing because you're playing college hockey now,
Hmm.
that's the kind of thing that people run into and they just don't know, like, you got the education because at the time we kind of started poking and knocking on those doors, right?
Hmm.
And so it's a very tough thing to learn. And a lot of kids quit there because they just feel like, okay, there's not something for me because maybe they pigeonhole themselves to one opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And
And for me, it was so family based and like my love for hockey, um, and you realizing like being a great hockey dad for me, and then moving into the position you're in now to help other kids, like it was okay. My son loves this position, loves this sport. I told you since I was 10, this is all I love. This is what I wanted to do. It's just what makes me the most happy. And then you're like, okay, we're gonna figure out the best way to go about this. And there were times where I was frustrated and learning was hard and crying in the cars after not making teams or whatever it might be. But that gathered a lot of information that we can use now and that I've used even to coach younger goalies and you used for countless teams and kids and even our USP team, USPHL Las Vegas Thunderbirds. Like it helps so much to have that system. And but some kids like have both their parents working all day to even pay the dues. Like it's you can't have both like pay for it and have the opportunity to find all these coaches and talk to all these coaches when they're just trying to get by to keep their kid in the game, let alone work through it. So I think that's where like something like an advisor helps a ton if you have the means to kind of I'm gonna focus on keeping my kid in the game, and then if somebody has gone through it like us, it's so beneficial to have them help.
yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about here is when you start getting anybody's goal, right? Whatever it is, it could be a young actor or an actress, right? You know, anytime somebody has a dream or a goal, there's people who will take advantage of that, right?
Yeah,
And
they feed off of it.
you see it in acting all the time, right? A young actress, she's beautiful, she wants the part, and before you know it, there's some kind of crazy sexual harassment or some kind of thing to help them achieve their dream, right? And so, in hockey has a dark side of it too, because parents who love their kids and want them to realize these dreams that we're talking about will almost do anything. And
Yeah,
so it creates a dark side of this sport where people try to monetize a parent's dream and desire to help them, right? To
yeah,
achieve their dream. And so, one of the reasons that I thought it was a great thing to get involved in this is that I think there's a opportunity, but there's also, you hear the term money grab a lot in our sport, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and so there's all this negative about I didn't get this position because I went to this camp. So right away that turns into a money grab. Now,
yeah,
there's plenty of camps that are there to make money, but if they communicate properly and they're honest with the kids, they won't feel like it's a money grab, right? If nobody communicates with you and nobody, so I think that communication is a big piece of all this,
right.
and that's why I want to help kids with video review by presenting to our staff, our our players that have played pro, our
Yeah,
coaches that are coaching at high level, so that you can get honest feedback that isn't about necessarily trying to get your camp money or trying to get advisor money or any of those things. It's true evaluation and a progression through that process so that you feel like your money is well spent and you have someone on your side. And I think that it is out there. There are very credible and very I guess reputable is probably a better word, organizations that work with kids, but then there's this giant group of them that will literally take a kid's money and never talk to them.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's even so having somebody to have these conversations is really helpful, and you were able to have these conversations with coaches for me. Like whether parents, kids like to admit it or not, there's kids at NAL, USHL, all these camps that pay a certain amount of money so that the best players can go there for free. That is a fact, and it's hard to hear, but it's a fact that the kids that are most likely to make the team are going there for free or a discount. And then there's kids that are filling the camp, paying the highest price to make that camp happen. And
Well, I think it even goes onto the roster sometimes, right? I mean, let's look at our typical US PHL team, for example, which is Tier 3 hockey for those out there that don't know. Pay to play is what all that really matters. And you still have a massive opportunity to play college hockey, but in those scenarios, the best players may pay less than the players who are in a developmental quote unquote role, right?
mhm,
And so,
there's a minimum that they have to pay in the league,
yes,
but there's also a maximum that can be touched.
right. And so that as long as that exists, I mean, and let's be honest, it's even a little bit at the NHL, right? You're gonna it just works the opposite way. So you're gonna have players that play on that team that don't make as much in order for the
McDavid's,
budget to be spent on the better players, right? And so
right?
it literally works the exact same way. And sometimes it's hard to hear those things, but if you have someone that you know is on your side and an almost unbiased opinion, that's why we're striving for something different like that.
Right. And it also comes down to a mentor. Like you taught me, like, hey, this is a position, you're on the team or you're not on the team, whatever it is, but do what you can to change their mind or fully make the team, like kick the door down if you have the chance. But understanding and having a mentor, somebody you can talk to be like, hey, is this a real opportunity that I can move on and increase my chance of playing or being a full like time part of this team, or am I here to pay for the jerseys, right? Like you have to have that conversation, and also you have to be a kid that I got a sliver of a chance. I'm gonna make the most out of it if it's a real opportunity. You have to have somebody that can actually explain that to you, and you can't just be like, "Oh, it's a money grab." Like that's a very, it's not a great mindset to have going into camps.
Well, no, and it's super hard too because when you don't get picked, the first thing you go to, most players, even at the youth level, the things parents will say are it was political, which means they didn't have a relationship with the coach or something like that, or that camp was just a money grab, right? And so
Right.
I think honesty with the parents, evaluating a mentorship program that doesn't have really a dog in the fight, right? They don't
Mm.
want, they can talk to you about those things. I think it's a really good thing because at the end of the day, you're talking about less than 1% of youth hockey players are even going to play Division 1 hockey, right? When we looked at some of these numbers, so if you're not going and then what was the percentage of Division 1 hockey players that play in the NHL?
I think it was 7
Seven. Yeah.
or any
So,
form of pro. 7% play any form of pro, and that D1.
right. Yeah,
So
seven and a half. So
93% of the best players aren't.
93% of the best players growing up aren't going to get any kind of shot to play pro, right? So now you have to look at what do you get out of hockey if that's not it? And I think that's probably a better place to start with how many great men are created, how many college, the
Oh,
education and the graduation rate of hockey players over most other sports, right? These are
it's the
real
highest.
numbers.
It's the highest of any
It's yeah,
NCAA.
it's the highest in the NCAA. So I think that kind of thing is why parents maybe need to reevaluate the goal so
Right.
that they don't get too deep and they don't get taken advantage of. Because if you're trying to make a better human being, you're trying to make a better friend, a better teammate, a better father, a better husband, hockey's a great place to start because of what it teaches you, right? And so if you let go of, let's say, playing pro and you say, what am I getting from this and what am I grateful for? It is the memories, the stories, the commitment to excellence. That's the kind of stuff that like really, really drives this machine if
Yeah.
you let it. As soon as somebody gets caught up in, I didn't get what I was owed, whether it's a tryout, whether it's pro. Matter of fact, we have friends and um, ultimate clients who will actually say the word they hated the game
Yeah.
because they felt like they didn't get back what they
Put it.
put in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When they got everything they needed to
And more.
and more to succeed in life, right? And so
Mhm.
and sometimes you need people to kind of remind you of that. And I know even on your journey, right? You can get caught up in what you didn't get or,
Yeah.
whatever is going on instead of looking at what you're
What I
grateful for, right?
Yeah. And I mean, even guys are mad at the NHL. Guys are mad, oh, I should be making I have friends in the NHL that say, "Oh, I should be making more than this guy. Why is this guy on the third line? I'm on the fourth line. This guy's making $1 million more than me. I whatever it is, right?" And that's the
It's never
NHL.
enough.
It's never
Never.
enough.
Yep.
And but there's also I have some of my best friends played in the East Coast League, and they say I got paid to play hockey. I made my best friends in the world. It was the best time of my life. I didn't care. I was having fun. It's pro hockey. I got to be a kid and get paid. Like you're playing a literal game and making money, and it's
Yeah,
the best
it's
game
a
in the
child's
world.
game for a king's ransom, they say, right?
Yeah, it's just it is the mindset, and even like the decision for me to leave Division 3 to play ACHA was tough at first. Um, there was a lot of ego involved in the perception of what I was doing. Um, but if you look at the amount of kids that would love to be in the position I'm at playing ACHA D1 at Arizona State, like it's a high percentage of kids and it's a great school and it's great hockey and it's but it was a mindset that I had to be okay with and be like this is a good thing and I can still achieve my goals of playing professional wherever that is after this. But that came from a lot of conversations with you. Like, this isn't an ego thing. This isn't a look at my EP thing. It's not it's not a name thing. It's what's best for your career, what's best for your experience. And ultimately, we decided that this was what's best, and it's been great.
Well, yeah, and I think it it goes back to clear expectations from the beginning. I'll never forget. Um, your brother was playing on a team, and he was just starting, and the coach. I think we were playing Double A, and the coach gave him a chance on the power play, and I think he was 9, and one of the parents, uh, you know, saw him come out and get power play time and was like, "What's he doing out here? And this kid doesn't belong." And I heard it, and and you really do forget that it's just a game. It won't mean anything a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, right?
Right.
And I think that the ability to let go of that ego, like you said, you know, what do the letters mean? What is, one shift, one play, who played ahead of you? Because the goalie thing's crazy too.
Yeah.
Like you can find yourself rooting against someone who's in the exact same position you are, just trying to do the best they can, right? And you see parents going, "Oh, I hope he lets this in," or "Why is he playing over my son?" And it gets
Yeah.
real
It's
dark.
you can't be doing that.
Yeah, but it's hard.
And yeah,
It's hard.
I've
You
seen
wanna.
parents counting all their goalie stats. It's big in youth, and I know it comes from a place of loving their goalie, but it's little Johnny gets this many shots, my son gets this many shots, and it's a lot in youth when the parents are more involved, and it's the pipeline seems so direct, um, but it's not helping your kid. It's not making your kid a better teammate. Promise. It shouldn't be that way. It look at I love the Linus Olmark Swayman relationship, right? They're best friends. They're
Well,
literally
yeah,
best
and
friends.
you see that trickle down to all levels. You see a lot of backup goalies coming out. You know, the team that I'm working with now, brand new goalie comes on the team, backing up, did this, hugged it out for a great win, and little stuff like that goes a long way. And I think that I'm sure you remember, I always talk to you about the example you were for the kids coming up, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's breaking your stick on the post or smiling or enjoying yourself, everything's under a microscope because this thing it's a constant machine turning out either kids that have hope or maybe kids who decide they don't, it's too much for them, right?
Yeah.
So I think for our first episode, I mean, we're kind of this is the type of thing that we're going to be getting deeper and deeper into.
Yeah.
Um, I think we should probably maybe stop here so that it it can be consumed at least in a reasonable time, and then we'll look forward to chapter 2 with everyone.
Yeah. And I'm gonna post this on Instagram. I don't know what the page is gonna be called yet, but hopefully I'll be able to flood some media out, and anybody listening, if you have any ideas, um,
Or subjects you want us to get into
yeah.
on this on what we've opened up here. I mean, because it will be a huge Pandora's box of people and stories. That's what's going to make this thing.
Oh, and we
Um,
have so many guests, and I have a couple people reaching out. Maybe we'll get my brother on. That's a big thing. I think having a brother in hockey is huge, and person to push you. Look at how many players in the NHL have brothers playing. I think it's a I think it's an advantage, and something we can talk about, having like a brother figure or something like that to help you out.
for sure.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. Well, sounds good. We'll talk to everybody at episode 2.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Yep. My pleasure.